John Grady.
Thank you, Mrs Butler, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I thank my honourable and dear friend, the member for Glasgow North East, my neighbour, for securing this important debate. Glasgow has disgraceful levels of poverty, absolute poverty, families that cannot afford the essentials to live: food, heat, school uniforms and clothes. Now, we do not help those in desperate poverty by making unaffordable promises, but despite the constrained public finances, our government has taken action. Our last budget raised billions in extra taxes to fight poverty. In Scotland, that means an extra £4.9 billion for the Scottish Government, so it can tackle record NHS waiting lists and arrest the alarming decline of Scottish education. And our Employment Rights Bill tackles the evil of in-work poverty with the biggest upgrade in workers' rights in a generation. And our government has increased the living wage well above inflation. Our government has been in power for 10 months. The Tories were in power for 10 years, and the SNP have been in power for 18 years, at the helm of an incredibly powerful, devolved administration, blessed with significant powers. And the SNP have run Glasgow City Council for 8 years.
On that point, will my honourable friend give way?
Yes, I will.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Would you agree with me that many of the essential services that families rely on are delivered by local authorities, and indeed that local authorities have had their budget slashed year on year by the Scottish Government, which impacts the ability to protect and support the most vulnerable people in our societies?
John Grady.
I'm obliged. May I say, Madam Chair, I agree. Local government has been emasculated by the governments, the Tory governments in England and Wales, and also the SNP government. One thing I'd say is they're pretty non-discriminatory in their emasculation, because they've failed to fund the SNP Council in Glasgow properly for years. In Scotland, one cause of poverty is the shocking state of the NHS. Record waiting lists do not just delay people getting back to work. The delays actually mean that people's conditions deteriorate to a point where people cannot return to work. And we should be incredibly angry about this. The Scottish Government promised in 2007 to establish a ministerial task force on health inequalities, yet Scotland continues to have the worst health inequalities in Western and Central Europe. And on disability health checks, following a successful pilot in 2019-20, the Scottish Government committed to carry out annual health checks for people with learning disabilities in 2022. And this should be completed by 2023, but as of 23-24, only 6.9% of eligible people have been offered a health check. So the SNP's record in Holyrood on health is something that is of absolute shame. Education is an essential pathway out of poverty. The attainment gap in Scotland is widening. It means that kids in my constituency and kids in other constituencies with large working class populations have fewer life chances, and their life chances are getting worse. An absolute scandal. College education is in crisis, and again, this should only be a source of anger. Now, turning to Glasgow City Council has an opportunity to help some of the most vulnerable in Glasgow. The Homeless Project Scotland has a food and night shelter in the Merchant City in Glasgow. It serves free hot meals and provides an immaculately clean shelter for homeless people. However, it has had its planning permission refused. The shelter is at risk of serious risk of closing. But I'm heartened to hear that Glasgow City Council has said we are available to engage and do whatever we can to help them find suitable property. I hope that Glasgow City Council does that. It has 2 golden keys to resolution. It has an extensive property portfolio and is the planning authority. I cannot think of an organisation better placed to help. I helped, Madam Chair, I'm about to wind up, at the shelter on Sunday night. Then, that night, the shelter served over 100 men and women. But because children are homeless in Glasgow too, it serves children. On Sunday night, a boy, just like my boy, with his dad. a teenage boy with his mum, a girl perhaps the same age as my daughter. If the shelter is closed, Madam Chair, where will these children and their mums and dads get a hot meal? Where will the most vulnerable in my city get a safe bed for the night? I hope Glasgow City Council delivers on its promise. I'm obliged, Madam Chair.